So welcome back to Startup Nomad. This week I am here with Marcella Chamorro, and she's the founder of Marca Labs, Devise, and the Perpetual Vacation. She's a Nicaraguan author and entrepreneur, and I think basically in a nutshell, she helps people stop living for the weekends and vacations and start enjoying every day of their lives. So clearly you can see why she and I might have crossed paths and get along. So Marcella, thanks so much for being here with me today. And you're in Nicaragua right now, correct?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Right now, I am in Nicaragua. I'm based out of Nicaragua the majority of the time at this point.
Okay, awesome.
But yeah, you summarized what I do kind of perfectly. I might go back and write that down.
Great. Well, it was a brief summary, so I think maybe the first thing you could do is if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself and maybe how you ended up in the world of entrepreneurship.
Sure. So I actually never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. I always envisioned myself like I went to college, went for my master's, came back from my master's already having a job set up for me, and that lasted all about 2 months. While I was, I guess like for about 3 years before that point, before I quit my job, as we all have like that moment, right? I had been writing a blog. I started off, I didn't know what I wanted to write about, and I was just kind of writing about technology. It was like a mini Mashable.
Okay.
And I very quickly got bored of that. And then I started experimenting more and more with writing about things that I actually cared about and gauging people's reactions. They were usually very positive reactions, and that surprised me because I felt like every time I was pressing publish, it was kind of made me feel nervous. And then that continued for a few years, and until it evolved more and more into, hey, people actually listen or read what I'm writing. They value my opinion enough so that even if I wasn't writing about technology anymore, my voice was out there about the digital world, I guess. And I was writing a lot about personal development, but sometimes, I do enjoy technology. I have a web design and development company. So I guess I intertwined both a little bit. And so just having my name out there as somebody who knew about this stuff, people started contacting me. And so I didn't actually quit my job, which lasted all about 2 months, until I really felt like people needed what I could do. And so I kind of quit to an established client base, which helped. There's definitely droughts, but it definitely helped to feel more confident in what I was doing. So that's how I became an entrepreneur. I feel like people asked me for it, and I kind of got dragged into it. And a lot of the times that I was at that job for 2 months, I kind of felt like I didn't own my time. I was sitting there wanting to write a book about online marketing, and I had nothing to do, but I felt guilty writing during my job time and stuff like that. So it's just an ongoing frustration with, it's not about how much I'm getting paid. It's not about how much free time I have or the freedom. At that point, it was, I can't spend the company's money on me doing nothing, and I can't spend my life not contributing something that I feel good about. So in that sense, I didn't actually quit. I moved to like a consulting position for a while, just so that they were comfortable with me, with the 2 months that they spent training me or whatever you want to call it. And they never asked for anything. They didn't ever have any jobs for me or any tasks. So I would have been sitting there idle for another few months before they probably fired me. So I think it was a good move. But that's kind of how I came across entrepreneurship.
Gotcha. And so now I've traveled quite a bit in Latin America, but I've never been to Nicaragua. So I would love it if you could tell me a little bit about the entrepreneurship world, the startup scene down there, what's going on.
Yeah, so my family's from Nicaragua. I grew up in the States though. I went to college in the States, master's in Europe, but in between, the only real time I've lived in Nicaragua was like high school. And because there was a civil war in Nicaragua when I was born, so my family lived in the U.S. Once all of that calmed down, we moved back in about 1999. I enjoyed Nicaragua, but I'm very, what they would call here, gringa. I really enjoy the U.S. and that culture as well. So, but I now live here because it does provide a lot of comforts, and it's really hot. That's why you see me drinking a lot of water. But it's a beautiful, beautiful country. The startup scene down here, it's not as grand as I wish it would be. At this point, there are a few. Mostly, though, they're agencies like in the tech world. It's mostly like agencies like mine, so developers and stuff like that. Usually working for clients, international clients, and there is kind of like a Groupon copy, which is like almost the only thing that changes their name. Stuff like that. There's a lot of, hey, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Why don't we just do something that works elsewhere? And I think that's changing, but there's still, Nicaragua is a place where, I mean, we're the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. So it's very difficult to find, and I love hiring Nicaraguans. My team is all Nicaraguan, but it's difficult to find people with the kind of talents that modern startups need, like, oh, Ruby on Rails and JavaScript, and people are like, I program in .NET, or I don't know, just kind of like old school stuff. So I think that culture is growing, and it's definitely not to the point yet where it makes me super happy, but it's good to see that we're on that path.
Mm-hmm. And is it being?
And there's definitely a lot of startups around tourism, for sure.
Okay. And is the ecosystem, you said that's starting to change, is it being built up mostly by Nicaraguans or people like you that are sort of a little bit of both, Nicaraguan and with a foreign flavor, or is it a lot of like expats moving down there because the cost of living is great and then they're trying to build up the ecosystem?
I would say that probably the majority of this is probably people like me that are a little bit of both, because there was so many people who moved out of Nicaragua. So the majority of people who moved out of Nicaragua during the 80s are now, 20 to 35-ish? Mm-hmm. And there is somewhat of a brain drain where we left and some people don't come back. But Nicaragua is so beautiful, and we have our families here. The Latin American culture family is so important that a lot of people are returning, even if it's after a few years of working in the States or anywhere else. And I feel like that is influencing or helping to grow that culture more quickly. But definitely, I don't see a lot of expats in the startup scene. There's a few, but definitely not the majority.
Gotcha. And is the startup community there connected with that in the rest of Latin America? I've seen a little bit of it. Like I know somebody, a Panamanian woman that was speaking at TEDx in Managua, but I haven't seen a ton of other cross-pollination with, like I said, I've traveled through a lot of Latin America and I don't see many Nicaraguans around.
Yeah, that's Stephanie Cohen. That's because she knows everyone. Stephanie Cohen knows everyone everywhere. I think that type of event has brought us closer together. She recently hosted, for example, a startup weekend Central America. Yeah. I wasn't able to go because I had a friend visiting. She had asked me to lead some groups and speak at her forum, but I wasn't able to go. So that she definitely is a catalyst to bringing people together, and I think we're lacking more people like her, but events like that are helping. I do think there's more presence of other countries that are more developed. Like if I visit Panama City, it looks like a mini Miami. Yeah. Nicaragua does not. I mean, our tallest building is 10 floors, and we call it the building. That's how we refer to it. I'm like, oh, are you going to the building? So we're definitely about 10 to 20 years behind, which is why a lot of tourists enjoy Nicaragua. It's cheaper, it's more homey feeling than a lot of other Latin American countries. So it does have its pros and cons. But for the startup scene, yeah, we're a little bit behind. But we're getting there, I think.
And is there any government support for entrepreneurship and startups? In quite a few countries, there are various types of government programs. Is the Nicaraguan government participating at all?
Yeah, I wish that we were like a startup Chile or something like that. But from what I understand, we definitely do not have government support. The political situation in Nicaragua is a little iffy. So while I try to not even know much about it because there's little I can control, but I do know that the majority of our support literally has to come from like our own revenues. Yeah, we don't have like any organizations that are helping support the startup community. Sadly, I think Startup Chile is amazing, and I would love to go. I actually know a few Nicaraguans who have been, but yeah, sadly the answer is no.
Gotcha.
Maybe in the future, you never know.
Well, speaking of the future, where do you see the ecosystem in, say, 5 or 10 years?
I would hope that there would be more of a community of, in this case, because I'm very involved in the developer community, I keep referring to like the programmers.
Yeah.
But I would hope to see more over in the next 5 or 10 years, more women involved. It's hard to find. I love to work with women, and sadly the majority of my team is male. So I think that's growing, and I hope it continues to grow, but at a faster rate than I see it currently growing. But I do think that there will be more developers, more people contributing to startups in the long run. What I would hope to see is more of a cohesive community. There's a feeling of competition within Nicaragua instead of like the Silicon Valley collaboration mindset. Everything is like, if you have a client, then it's not my client, or if it's my idea, it's not your idea. And a lot of what I've tried to spread to the people that I spend time with is, it's all helping everybody. It's not me versus you. So I hope that does change. And I think a lot of other countries have moved much more quickly toward that collaboration mindset. And it might be because of organizations, support and stuff like that, and bringing people together in more events. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that would feed that process.
Gotcha. So what's your advice?
This is all very negative.
I'm sorry?
I'm painting Nicaragua startup scene so negatively. I feel so bad. Hopefully we're on the right path.
What's
comparing to about 10 years ago? Mm-hmm.
Sorry, there was a little delay there. I missed what you said.
I was going to say that I'm painting it very negatively, but compared to about 10 years ago, we're doing amazingly, and compared to 5 years ago as well. So we are getting better. I just because I have been to Silicon Valley and been to different startup communities, I know what is possible. So maybe that's why I'm painting it so negatively. Gotcha. We'll get there.
Well, is there something that's special and positive about the ecosystem in Nicaragua?
I think definitely, and if you ask most tourists, what they say about Nicaragua is that everyone is so nice and everyone is so welcoming. And I do think that applies as well to the startup community. The kind of people that I meet and that I, end up working with, collaborating with, everyone is really wonderful. And I think that's, it's not just about, here in Nicaragua, at least it's not just about what you know and what you can do. It's always assumed that you can learn. I'll hire somebody if I think that they can. The point is, it's more like the culture of helping out and being just a generally good person to hang out with. Because in the end, when you're in a startup, you spend so much time together, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Well, so what is your advice for aspiring entrepreneurs out there?
My advice to aspiring entrepreneurs out there would be, I have a few. I would say that for aspiring entrepreneurs, the first thing is the idea. What is the idea that I'm going to work on? And it's not that I don't believe in ideas because they're beautiful, but I do think that most people leave it at that. And I've read a lot of blogs about this, so please don't I do not deserve the credit for this, but I definitely think that ideas are more worthwhile when they're focused on, people who are willing to pay for some kind of service that solves a pain, and that people are willing to sign up to pay for before it's ready. A lot of people or aspiring entrepreneurs just think like, I have this great app idea, and they start working on it, and I see a lot of disillusionment after that. After the idea concept, I think that the next step is, find a co-founder. A lot of people are not ready to go about it on their own. And I think that in the majority of cases, people don't think through that process of finding a co-founder enough before they dive in. And it's so important. So that piece for me is the ultimate solution is whoever you work with, whether it be one person, 3 people, 5 people, in my personal opinion, they need to be strategic partners in the sense of like complementary skills. If there are not complementary skills and they are overlapping skills, there shall be problems. And no startups are difficult enough. You don't need like human resources issues with your co-founders. Everything should be wonderful in that sense, because everything else is going to be a nightmare. Apart from that, I think that a lot of people go into entrepreneurship thinking that it's going to be all rosy because they're not going to be in an office anymore and they're going to work on their own. But it's very difficult to work on your own. And I think just to prepare for the punches that are coming, I'm serious, I sound so jaded. But the punches pass, and that's the point. The problem is that when you're not expecting them, then it can feel so difficult to move past. And so just to expect that there will be hard times as an entrepreneur. It's not all roses and working in your pajamas. There will be days where you're so busy that you just want to die. So just expecting that stuff beforehand, I think makes it easier to get through once you do hit those roadblocks. Because as an entrepreneur, you can just give up if you want. There's nobody holding you to your work. It's all internal. So I think that preparing for the mental journey and the emotional journey, I think, is important as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and your information, Marcella.
Anytime. I'm always available, and just for anybody who watches this, I'm Marcinator on Twitter, and they can hit me up. Everybody might completely disagree with what I had to say or agree, but I would love to hear any comments or additions to what I have to say. It would be awesome.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll put links to your website and your social media, and also your TEDx talk. It's in Spanish, so most of my viewers are English speakers, but any of you out there that do speak Spanish, you should definitely check out her TEDx talk that was a couple years ago, right?
Yes, that was in 2012, and I spent about 4 hours transcribing it in English. So if you just press CC on it, you can watch it.
Perfect. Then everybody should check it out, not just Spanish speakers. Awesome. I'll put the link below the video on my site. Yeah,
that was 2012, and then 2013 I hosted that event. And then this year I will not be participating because I will be having a baby about a week beforehand.
Oh wow, well congratulations.
Thank you. I basically told the team, I love you guys, but I don't have time. Please keep me in your hearts. It's the TEDx Managua is one of our few events, so it's very close to our hearts. So.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Did you find this video helpful or fun? Then share it with a friend who you think would benefit from the dish, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Facebook and subscribe to my channel on YouTube so you never miss any of the latest tips, tricks, and tutorials to help your business grow. And you get to see my adventures through the wide world of entrepreneurship and how I use the freedom running my own business gives me. Also, remember to head over to CateCosta.com so you can get in on the conversation about how to build your business to success so you can live your life your way.